I woke up in a pool of blood with zip ties binding my wrists on the floor of the Lululemon I worked at and saw my coworker dead just down the hallway. What happened to us will have you in shock. It was a late Friday night at the Lululemon I worked at in Maryland. Myself and my coworker Jana were closing up shop at about 10 at night. We locked everything up and went to our cars. That's when I realized I had forgotten something and asked Jana to let me back in the store. She obliged, and we went back into the store to grab my forgotten items. That is when two men with masks appeared. They chased us down and began to beat us and sexually assault both of us. Eventually, I went unconscious and only remember being woken up by another coworker the next morning. I began describing what happened to the police and gave them anything I could remember about the intruders. However, weeks later they came and arrested me. Why, you may ask? Because there were no robbers. You see, Jana and I got into an argument when we got back in the store, and before I knew it, I was attacking her. I gave her over 300 wounds with 5 different objects I find to hurt her with. All of my injuries were self-inflicted to make it look like I too was a victim. Police realized it was me after much of the story didn't line up with the evidence they found. I was found guilty in 2012 and sentenced to life in prison. Follow for more stories.
This just gets crazier and crazier. It is day 12 since Danilo has escaped. He stabbed his girlfriend 38 times in 2021. He is now armed as of last night. He broke into a home and stole a weapon from the garage. Danilo has nothing to lose and he is dangerous. This just blows my mind because he escaped through the perimeter line that the FBI and law enforcement have. People are calling this guy Houdini. Even a helicopter last night spotted him, and he still has managed to escape. This is wild. So this is happening in Pennsylvania. Right here, I pinned the location of the prison where he escaped from. He used a crab walk method to go up the wall and on the roof, and he escaped. And then over here, near Pottstown, is where they found his shoes and his green sweater last night in a field near Coventryville Road. And so this whole general area near downtown Pottstown is literally shut down. Teams are stopping cars and searching. This manhunt is heating up. I pray that he is found soon because he is a danger to society.
A lot of people have their thoughts about my family, and I think they have it wrong.
You would definitely think something like this is made up.
This is a case that shocked the nation.
Deep breath. All right, here we go.
Like the pine trees lining the winding road.
At the time, Steve was 7.
I've got a name.
Stephen was taken
I've got a name.
and absolutely disappeared from the face of the earth.
You always had this little flutter of hope. They'll find him today.
And he came home.
I've got a name that he kept here.
Stephen also helped rescue missing 5-year-old Timothy White.
My father was a hero. He saved another child's life.
Prodigal son returns, a miracle.
Wow, we were so naive.
And I carry it with me like my daddy did.
A lot of attention went to Stephen. We all got a little jealous. My older brother, Kerry, he was off.
Stephen was all over the news.
Were you afraid?
A little bit.
And that's when he started the movie and all that.
It was the biggest deal in Hollywood.
The NBC made-for-TV miniseries is called I Know My First Name is Stephen.
48% of America was watching it at the exact same time. It was like the Super Bowl.
We wanted to go back to our normal lives. Kind of hard to do that when you got cameras everywhere, though. My brother, Kerry, got annoyed.
And I'm gonna go there free.
How can you create a bigger story than Stephen? Well, he did.
I've got a
3 sightseers went missing.
It's no longer the story you thought it was.
There was a killer on the loose.
My mom sat us down, and then she told me that was my Uncle Kerry. That's crazy.
Everybody wants a happy ending. Not many true stories are a happy ending.
What is that connection that flips somebody into a monster?
I've got a name.
You never know what the ending's gonna be. I didn't know how this would end.
I've got a name.
You don't want to believe it, but the truth, it's unreal.
Shocking.
I've got a name.
You got to get the whole story.
I've got a name.
There are many sides to it.
I've got a name.
How much more could happen in one family?
I've got a name.
University of Wisconsin college student was beaten, strangled, and raped on the first day of school. She was walking home at 3 in the morning in a relatively low-crime area. Ring cameras and DNA were used to develop a suspect. The suspect, who has no criminal history, is a college graduate and gainfully employed, was driving around that night. He says he saw her and saw red. He pulled over, followed her, and then attacked her. After the attack, he approached 2 other women from their open kitchen windows. He was covered in the victim's blood and dragged her into their backyard, so they called the police. One college student said it scared her so bad, they now locked their doors. Keeping in mind nobody gets caught their first time, this didn't just happen. His DNA wasn't in the system before, but it is now. They're probably going to connect it to other cases, and when they look on his phone and computer, they're going to find there was a buildup. Nighttime rules for college kids. Always travel in groups. Always carry pepper spray. Uber or taxi over walking, always. I don't care that you're poor, I've been there. I don't care that your destination's 4 blocks away. Ride, don't walk. And if it's on campus, most college campuses have escorts anyway. You've already paid for them, use them. Be aware and be safe.
One of the most wild accusations that were made about me is that I killed 800 children. I was medically experimenting on children compared to Adolf Hitler, soon to be part of the KKK. It's kind of like where to begin, you know?
Ciao, let's get into it. Now, if you've been on Twitter for the past week, you've been seeing this clip circulating, and you've probably been seeing a lot of people outraged that this documentary is even happening. The woman in that video is named Rachel Bach, and she is accused to have been responsible for the deaths of up to 800 Ugandan babies. I have a lot of feelings about this, but let me just give you a quick rundown of her story, and then we'll get into my opinions in a second. Also, hi, my name is Madison. I'm the creator behind the Madis One channel, and if you're interested in BIPOC true crime stories, hit the link in the bio to subscribe and check me out. Okay, let's get into it. Essentially, Rachel had gone to Uganda during one of her evangelical mission trips, and she came back, and she decided that she wanted to go back in order to do more and help out the community there. So she started this charity called Serving His Children in Uganda, the place that she had specifically visited, and started by feeding the kids bi-weekly. So they'd cook a meal and feed a lot of the children, and through that process started to gain a lot more popularity as more and more people depended on them. She was approached by somebody who asked if she would be willing to help take care of some malnourished children, severely malnourished children in the area, and she also decided to take that on. So Serving His Children was no longer just handing out free meals to the local kids. It also was taking in and rehabilitating and being responsible medically for children who are severely malnourished in the area. She would also allow their families to stay while their, kids were getting fed and getting back healthy. That's all well and good, but the issue was that she was operating without a medical license, and in some quotes by some people that were there, not washing her hands and using her gut feelings about administrating medical care. She was doing blood transfusions, she was putting in IVs, she was doing a bunch of stuff that you need to be specifically trained to do. Not to mention, she did not get a medical license for this charity. So she shouldn't even have been practicing any of this stuff in the first place. Now, those that were there, saw what they saw. One man reportedly said he was on average driving 7 to 10 children's bodies to their homes a week. She was sued by 2 of the mothers, or rather the organization was sued by 2 of the mothers whose kids passed away. They settled out of court, and basically the whole thing dissolved. Okay, opinion number 1 after that very quick rundown. I always feel really gross when it comes to these evangelical mission projects in countries that are going through a volatile time. I don't like to see the content on it. I don't like to see people talking about it, because there is this very intense smell of colonialism there. And a lot of those corporations and organizations are rife with abuse towards the local people because they know those people don't have enough capital to go against their organization. So I always feel really gross and really weird with all of that kind of stuff in the first place. Secondly, and I think why most people are really upset, is the fact that HBO is doing a 3-part series on this woman, centering this woman. And I think this is what, I don't know why it's so hard to understand, but what is so frustrating being a person of color in this country, specifically when it comes to true crime content. Instead of platforming the victims of this situation, you are choosing to platform the woman that was a perpetrator of this violence. And sure, yes, of course, there's probably going to be people that were there. There's probably going to be people saying their opinion. But the entire thing is centering this woman and her experience and giving her the massive platform of a Max docuseries to speak her side. This is the issue I had with the Jeffrey Dahmer thing. This is the issue that I keep having with these types of things being hashed and rehashed in this way. True crime is but a microcosm of the world around it. It is just a small example of what is influencing it societally. Because of that, there are things like missing white woman syndrome or just the overall preference of reporting on a white person instead of a person of color. There are ways to talk about these stories without only centering and giving the loudest microphone to the white person in the room. On top of that, you can be a person accused of essentially murdering 800 babies, Ugandan children, and you can get a 3-part miniseries to explain your side. Just like the aftermath of Dahmer, we saw how people were like lusting after him and just like so sympathetic towards him, when in reality, he specifically targeted Black gay victims because of their marginalized nature in society. Missing white women syndrome and the infiltration of white supremacy in the true crime space isn't just the resources that are used, isn't just the spotlight that's put on that case or that victim. It's also the spotlight that continuously gets put on that case for years to come. There are so many stories that need to be told, so many situations that are purposely hidden by the way we tell history, so many true crime cases that have never seen the light of day, that will never be a household name, and that is because of the color of their skin. But instead of digging up a true crime story or telling a true crime story centering the victims, centering the people of color, centering the marginalized party in the situation, you continue to do this thing where you platform the predator. And that is an active choice. That is an active choice to choose to make a series around somebody accused of unaliving 800 African kids. Instead of going there and talking to the people directly and centering their story. You saw that trailer. She's sitting down like she's about to do a YouTube apology video. Like they're giving her such a massive platform to do that instead of platforming maybe the 2 women who sued the charity. Going there and talking to the people there and centering their story. But these things and these decisions have real material consequences. You know what I'm saying? Because that is why people target poor kids, Black kids, kids of color, gay kids, trans kids to do and to enact violence against them, because they know that it's less likely that they'd be caught, because it's less likely that the police will care, that it's less likely that it would become a national news story because of their marginalized nature in society. And telling the story in this same tired way is contributing to that. Sorry for the long video, but if you are interested in dark history, widening the definition of what a true crime story is, if you are interested in a place or a person who centers BIPOC stories wholeheartedly and talks about the things that people are not talking about, hit the link in the bio and subscribe.
You know what is so scary? murder.
Ruby has been caught lying about Russell and his SA, and I've got the video proof today to show you guys. Guys, make sure to click the plus sign. I'm gonna have more come out about this. Sound off in the comments. Tell me what you think. But I want to show you this clip that the family put together of Russell. I want you to hear what they have to say about the horrific kid who was SAing over 20 people and everybody around. Take it.
Russell is incredibly mature for his age. His ability to empathize with other people and to connect with them at an age of 10 is incredible. Like, he truly thinks about other people and doesn't think about himself. And he's been that way ever since he was a little kid.
Yeah, he's just born that way. I love Russell's sincerity. I don't think Russell knows how to tell a lie if he tried. He's so honest. I love his willingness to share. He's very generous. I like that he's like unapologetically himself.
I look back at when I was his age, and that was not him. I was not empathic at all, but there's just a lot of empathy.
I like how he forgives me no matter what I do.
Oh, he is very forgiving, isn't he?
Really interesting what a sweet, empathic, kind, forgiving kid he is that's capable of doing the monstrous things she said that he's done, and we've never heard a word of this. Now, to be fair, let's play devil's advocate, right? Because we've heard things like Lizzo's dancers coming out and speaking out, and there's been a very big conversation about the fact that people could be saying all kinds of nice, wonderful things about people, but those people could be being abused by those people, right? However, let's look at it this way. This is not anybody in a position of power or authority. This is a child that she said by the age of 3 was looking at graphic, intimate images. Please infer, gotta be careful how I talk. So it's interesting on how kind and caring he is, and yet he's also so capable of doing those things. And here's another thing. A lot of times it's the kind, caring, empathetic child is the one that gets the worst abuse. And part of that is because they're empathic, they know what's going on intuitively, they feel everything. They know it because the abusers are intuitive too, just in a dark sense. They have to use those intuition abilities to be able to manipulate. They can tell that those kids, number one, they see the kindness as a weakness and they can go after it, exploit it. Number two, they know the empathy equals intuition equals those children can see through what they're doing. And many times they get it the worst. And a lot of times it's because those are the children that grow up and they're the truth tellers in the abusive cycles. They tell the truth, and the truth tellers get it worse than everybody. And that's why I think she's doing these SA stuff. And this is why I think it's horse crap as well. We heard Jody's niece say that Jody had said the same thing about her, and other people talk about how Jody wants to constantly put on people that they are an intimacy deviant. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think this is proof, and does this exonerate Russell? I think this is a huge step towards it. Sound off in the comments, click the plus sign. I've got more coming. Ruby and Kevin Frank have been caught getting rid of child abuse evidence as they conspired to get that house cleaned up so nobody would know what was going on. Guys, make sure and click the plus sign. I'm going to have more information on this come out. Sound off in the comments. Tell me what you think. Let's just dive in and we'll... So just the other day, I put up a video of Ruby's supposed cellmate and conversations she had with Kevin. And many internet sleuths have said they were dropping hints and clues. Let's look at that again, and then we'll see what we can get from it. Now, apparently, this woman was in the same cell with her. She had a TikTok video that she removed, and she said she heard conversations between Ruby and Kevin. Check this out. It says, they instructed their attorney to visit their residence and collect money hidden in the house. When the attorney arrived, the money was nowhere to be found, causing Ruby to panic about being unable to pay him. And it says Ruby was very worried about Jody and was trying to desperately catch glimpses of her. Ruby told Kevin that it was ridiculous how nobody would listen to her about Russell needing to be kept away from the other children. Ruby told Kevin she wouldn't blame him if he refused to speak with her considering the abuse and how she had forced him out of the house. Ruby's fame followed her and gave her special treatment and privileges like pencils and pens, and it does say Ruby and Kevin spent time discussing flood damage repairs for their home, which was an odd concern considering the charges against her. Now, there's a couple things to this. A lot of people are saying the flood damage to the home is actually code. And some of what she's saying, they are both speaking in code to each other. And flood damage means going through and getting rid of the evidence. And considering we have seen Kevin at that house, that's entirely possible. On top of having the attorney go to the house to look for hidden money, but he couldn't find any. Some people are thinking that that could possibly be that she instructed her attorney to go get rid of evidence and go look through the house, and that the attorney basically said, Can't find anything, can't find any money, which means the evidence is gone. Now, lawyers are not supposed to do that. That's totally against the law. And I'm not saying this happened. These are some theories and these are some speculations. But I will say about the flooding, this is what I find interesting. I agree. Why are they so concerned with that? And furthermore, we haven't had any reports of flooding. Now, just because we haven't heard about that doesn't mean it hasn't happened. But I wish we could talk to the neighbors and hear their perspective and see if there was any flooding issues. Now, it seemed like she was more private over time, even though she liked to go through the neighborhood and scream at people for all the awful, immoral things they're doing. She's a super religious Karen. However, I wonder if they would have some information on this. But maybe they wouldn't because she was so hidden. But yeah, I do find it interesting that suddenly she's interested in flood damage, and considering how long she's been away from the home and that she was arrested at Jody's residence after being there for days and weeks at a time, how would she even know if there was flood damage? Are you telling me that she just left the house with flooding and all that mold and possibly her children in the house? I don't know. What do you guys think about this theory? Sound off in the comments, click the plus sign. I've got more. Real reason that Jody Hildebrandt duct taped those children and bound them is being exposed, and it's darker than what you think. Guys, make sure and click the plus sign. I'm going to keep you up to date on this. Sound off in the comments. Tell me what you think. But all I want you to as well, watch this whole video through because this is so interesting. This is from Jessie. This is Jody's niece. Jody got the same treatment, and she goes into detail as to why Jody does what she does. Because a lot of people have asked, how? How could this have happened? How can these women act this way? And she explains it through her experience, and she had a really similar experience to them. Take a listen and we'll discuss.
She would rationalize and validate these types of behaviors through dreams and visions. She would have these dreams that God came to her and told her that I had had an abortion. And so no matter what I said, I was a liar. And then and also she was convinced that every word that came out of my mouth was a lie. And that, gave her rationale to put duct tape on my mouth. And that's why I was always duct taped. Because every word I said was a lie. And that needed to be physically reiterated and to show that as a reminder that everything I say is a lie. So, and also people saw me duct taped. People saw that these things were going on. And other than the few people that went to Bishop and being like, hey, something's wrong, no one did anything. Is because I wasn't getting better. I was getting worse. Is that there was still sin in me that wasn't coming out, that I hadn't confessed yet. And she was so hyper fixated on me confessing sin. And she was convinced I was a sex addict. I was a drug addict. I'm trying to make you so physically uncomfortable that it forces the sin out. And so that's when she started, I had to sleep outside in the snow. That's when I was an office in Thanksgiving Point. There was a little side office closet kind of room. It was a little bit bigger than a closet, but it didn't have any windows. It had a table, a chair, an actual closet, and that's about it. So that's where when I was pulled out of school and I started living with her full time, because she worked, I went with her to work, and that's where I stayed. And sometimes she would lock me in it, sometimes she wouldn't, but I was not allowed to leave. I ran away 3 times from her house. I went to a neighbor's. I went to the police, if this is fully true. But from what I understand, she's been diagnosed with many, many issues, including psychopathy. So she, as far as I'm aware, she is a psychopath. Sunroom off her bedroom. At first I was sleeping on a love seat in there. And then it got worse where I was sleeping on the floor. And then she would make me sleep on her balcony in the middle of winter. This is January, February in Utah. I am not getting out of this unless I leave right now. And I didn't think twice. I grabbed the jacket and I just ran and ran and ran. And I had a skirt on. I had moccasins on that my feet were coming through the bottoms. I'm certain I looked horrendously unwell. I had lost tons of weight. My stomach was eating itself alive. There was blood in my stool. I was very unwell. She also, I was vegetarian. I wasn't allowed to be vegetarian. She would withhold food. it's just insane. So I ended up hitchhiking to the road home in Salt Lake City under a fake name. I told these people that picked me up that I was 18. I went by the name Rudy Jude, and I lived in the shelter for months. The timeline of the shelter, like being homeless, is really, really fuzzy. There was everything that goes along with being a homeless female. You just manipulate them into caring. If you were, and Alex and I have talked about this extensively, of like anything you feel in Jody's world, if you're sick, if you feel like, if you're sad, if you're sick, it was like, oh, you're such a victim. You're such a little victim right now. And it was always like really, what's the word? Like, I can't think of the word, but it was always like poking, like contemptuous of like, you poor little thing, you poor little victim. And if you're sick, it was like, yeah, and it was always just like, you're manipulating people. You're manipulating me right now. You're not sick. Do you have a fever? Are you throwing up? Then you're manipulating me. You're manipulating everyone around you to feel bad for you. You're such a victim. She creates this narrative and this internalization in you to think that you are evil, to think that you are terrible, and that you deserve everything that's coming to you. And that she destroys your reputation with everyone around you. She separates everyone. No one's allowed to talk alone. So everyone distrusted me. Everyone thought I was deserving of all this, even though like you were saying, these types of extreme punishments, you would think like, oh, this person is a heroin addict, or this person has extreme problems that need extreme solutions. And I would say that these types of things are always wrong, regardless of what's going on. But I wasn't. I was an angry teenager, and I wasn't allowed to be in the same room as
my heart breaks for her. I'm so glad, like Russell, she was brave enough to get out of there and to escape. And to me, it sounds like Jody has a dangerous lack of empathy for other people. And this is what people like Jody do. They will take certain spiritual truths and distort them and twist them to be able to fit their narrative and make everybody fit in the box that they want. Yes, at the end of the day, shall we try not to look at ourselves as victims? Absolutely. Does that mean you aren't a victim of something and you haven't been victimized? No. Also, this thing about health is incredibly scary to me as somebody who is disabled with chronic health issues and had parents treat me like this. It's very scary. And the fact is, what they do is they take away your whole support system and they start a negative campaign against you in your weakest, worst moments. The good silver lining in this is that I bet these kids are going to come out of this, and it's going to be hard, but they're going to come out of this better and stronger and healed. And one day they're going to speak about this and they'll be able to put people like this in their place. And I hope that they educate millions of people about people like Jody, so people aren't taken advantage of anymore, and even children, so that children can spot these signs and these red flags. It can be so hard to see. And that's just crazy. You duct tape somebody because they're not speaking the way you want them to speak. So we duct tape the mouth and we chain them up. Unreal. I don't know. What do you guys think about this? Sound off in the comments, click the plus sign. I've got more coming.
Her arms were cut off. Her legs were cut off. Her ears were cut off. Her tongue was cut off.